friends, and welcome back to another episode of Conservation Stories. I'm Tillery Timmons-Sims, your host. As you probably know, if you've listened to us before, Conservation Stories is sponsored by the Sandhill Area Research Association, or SARA, as we like to call it. And we keep making new friends and meeting new people that are in our area and like thinking, why is a school from Kingsville in Lubbock? So I've asked Levi, my new friend Levi, to join us, give us a little bit of information about what you're doing in Lubbock.
Sure, yeah, and that can be as long or as short of a story as we want to do.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
tell us about the center first. You're the research center.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Levi Heffelfinger. So I am faculty with Texas A&M University Kingsville, but specifically within the Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute. And so the very abbreviated history on that is there was a man named Caesar Kleberg who worked on the King Ranch way back in the day, back when it was over 1 million acres. Yes. And he was a very prominent figure for the ranch, helping manage their cattle, was instrumental in developing the original railroad system down through there, and had a lot of assets. But one of his big passions was wildlife. And many of you have maybe heard of a man named Aldo Leopold, who is known as the father of wildlife conservation, probably for all of North America. Caesar Kleberg is known to be the father of wildlife conservation in Texas. And he was one of the original people that came up with the idea of, hey, maybe we don't shoot everything we see. Maybe we should be strategic in what and when we harvest or how we might manage these species. Yeah. So all that being said is when Caesar Kleberg passed, he had a large amount of assets, and he never married, didn't have children, had no next of kin. And so he left all of his money in a foundation that he wrote into his will to be specific for wildlife conservation. Fast forward to 1981, and those funds were allocated to develop a wildlife research institute housed within a university, and Texas A&M Kingsville was chosen to be that university.
That's really cool.
So now fast forward 45 years, and here we are, and I'm one of the nearly 20 faculty members that work in that institute at that university. But then back to your original question is, why am I in Lubbock, Texas, instead of way deep South Texas?
Way down there, yes.
And so for the first 30-ish years, CKWRI, that's our acronym, really focused on applied wildlife research in South Texas. And so doing research that's directly applicable to managers in South Texas instead of kind of more theoretical ecology research that a lot of other institutions do.
So help me with my geography here. Kingsville is it closer to, what's it close to? Down on that, because it's way down on the coast area, right?
Yep.
Is the King Ranch down there?
They
have King Ranch.
The King Ranch comes up and borders campus, actually.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about that.
Right up next to the town. Straight south of Corpus Christi, about 45 minutes. So way down the southern tip.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first 30 or so years really focused on that region. But the Institute has become very well known, especially on the applied research side. One of the nation's leading, and obviously I might be biased in that, but I think a lot of people would agree. And so because of that kind of notoriety that was developed for the first 3 or 30 years, we started expanding in the scope of the research, started getting involved at a national scale, or even at very minimum across Texas. Started developing close research partners like Sul State University and Texas Tech University, and collaborating together on research projects that spanned into areas like where we're sitting now.
Yeah.
And so with that expansion, we decided that maybe another kind of remote subunit of the Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute would be beneficial. And that is what I'm the director of. So I'm the director of the North Texas Research Program of Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute, based here in Lubbock.
Okay, so the next question, I think people are thinking, what wildlife?
Great question. Yeah. I mean, the South Plains, this whole region, has a plethora of wildlife species, and many of them are frankly understudied compared to across the country.
I can believe that, because I think it's just really easy to think that there's really not any.
Right. Yeah. And once you get outside of that kind of 100% cropland, especially, and there's a lot of wildlife species that use those agricultural landscapes, but when you get into the mixed grass prairie or areas that are kind of broken up with that sort of landscape, there's some very incredibly iconic species. I'm sure we've all heard of the lesser prairie chicken, pronghorn, which are really unique species to North America, mule deer, those sorts of critters.
I knew we had mule deer, and I've seen pronghorn close to eastern New Mexico in that like Bailey County area before.
Yep. Yeah.
One lone by himself, and I was like, what is that?
It looks like something from Africa or something, right? Yeah. No, they're a really cool species. They evolve. They're the only members of their family. They're not an antelope, like a lot of people like to call them. And they evolved independently on this continent.
Okay, you know what I think I saw was an antelope. You're talking about the ones that have the...
Nope. No, those are bighorn sheep. Yeah. So pronghorn, kind of orange and white. They've got the black horns.
Yes.
That is what you saw.
Oh,
yeah.
my gosh, that is what I saw.
Yep. And so that's not technically an antelope. They do behave and kind of look very similar to some of the African antelope species, but they're
native?
They are native to North America. Yeah.
I think I've always just assumed they escaped from somebody's wildlife.
Nope.
I mean, like emu, like somebody's like, I'm tired of feeding these suckers. Let them go.
Right. Yeah. No, what's really, I mean, we could talk about pronghorn for an hour even, but one thing that's really cool with this area particularly is we are right at the edge of their range. And so they span all of the western states, so all the way up to, Washington, Idaho, down through parts of Mexico. And that kind of eastern edge is right about where we're sitting right here. And so that's why you probably haven't seen many of them, as they're kind of rare to see.
So, when I think about like this area, pre us, coming in, like, I don't know, colonizing, I guess, for lack of a better word. I don't know that that's the right word, but settling this area. Maybe that's the best word. I just think of, when I think of wildlife, I think jackalope and buffalo and might be some ground dwelling birds.
Yeah.
Well, or, prairie chicken, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
But I never thought about there being that.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the Texas Panhandle as a whole, from a large mammal perspective, is something that's overlooked incredibly because, like you just said, a lot of people think, well, there used to be bison here, but that's it. But no, we're at the edge of the range for pronghorn. We're almost at the edge of the range for mule deer. There are white-tailed deer. There are now elk coming into this region as well.
I saw, like, this is a long time ago. This was probably 2007. And I saw a huge bull elk crossing Highway 70 between Muleshoe and Earth, Texas. And I was like, the kids and I were like, we could see it from a long ways off.
Yep.
And we got up on it, and I was like, that is surely not. But it was like, get your phone out.
Yep.
Take a picture, you know.
Yeah, I mean, all those species, people travel all the way to Yellowstone National Park to see
them. Yeah,
we have them.
Or Ruidoso, they're all over Ruidoso now.
Right. But yeah, we have them existing in this area, or kind of slowly coming back into this area, which is cool.
Did we ever have wild horses? That's something that's come back in Ruidoso too. They're everywhere.
Yes, there are some over there, but no, still mostly kind of those western states, Nevada, Utah, that kind of area. Yeah.
So I know that, I mean, I've seen it. I'm not too surprised, to see deer here. In fact, I was coming down 50th, the new wing of 50th, coming towards Milwaukee, and a whole group passed like right in front of my car, and I was going slow enough. One of them actually like bumped into the side of my car. You know what I mean? It didn't hit it. I heard it, but it moved my mirror over. You know what I mean? Just
nice.
like, because I saw them soon enough to go slow, but I was like, and it wasn't just like one or two. It was like a whole group of them.
Yeah.
Do you call them a group, or do you call them a herd?
A herd usually, yeah, but a group works too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we do have some short hunting seasons here. They're just like not like months long.
Yeah, yes and no. From the kind of big game perspective, generally speaking, white-tailed deer season is, and I don't know the specific dates, but November through December, so 2 months.
Okay.
But mule deer specifically have a much shorter season.
Yeah,
So
okay.
depending where you're at, it can be 10, 11, 12 days, depending
That's
on the
what
county.
I think that's what I was thinking of.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then pronghorn especially being, again, there's not huge numbers in the state, really kind of limited to a landowner by landowner basis. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think the chances are when, we've, excuse me, had several, people are acknowledging they're probably going to have to, put some land turn their irrigation off, or there won't be irrigation and they're going to go back to grazing land. And will that, think that'll increase the population? Like it'll draw them further in?
Yeah.
More of them will come?
Yeah, that's a great question and a tough one to answer, but is one of the main, or one of the reasons that we're in this area researching those sorts of critters is we have an incredibly dynamic landscape that, as you said, is gonna change. It's not if, but it's when. And how are these critters gonna react to that? How does that change how we might manage them or allocate harvest, like you mentioned, hunting?
Right.
Like, what's that going to look like in the future? And so that's where really the big knowledge gap has been and why we're here. Because my background specialty is researching those kind of large mammal species. And so my research program and all my graduate students are addressing those types of questions.
Yeah. So a question being, what is the impact of deer on row crops?
Sure.
Commodities.
Exactly.
What are they going to do to my peanuts?
Yep. And that was kind of the first big project that started this whole remote research branch, and why I'm here is my dissertation work when I was getting my PhD was addressing that question exactly, where we had both landowners and a management agency, Texas Parks and Wildlife, concerned about all these deer that are standing in a crop field, right? And landowners are going, what are they doing to my crops?
Right.
Landowners are also concerned, there's certain months of the year that I see 150 in my field.
Right.
And other times of the year that I can't see a deer for a month or two. So are they migrating? Are they moving back and forth?
Right.
Texas Parks and Wildlife is obviously interested in that. And like, if we're managing for some amount of harvest for this landowner, but those deer don't stay there year round, are we miscounting them? Are we misallocating harvest?
Right.
So from both perspectives, they were concerned about it.
Right.
And so we did a big research project all around the Panhandle where we, with a helicopter, net gunned and captured almost 150 mule deer in different sites around the Panhandle. And we put GPS collars on them to see where do they move throughout the year.
Right.
And also, depending on where they move, how does that influence the population? Is the population stable? Are they surviving? Are they reliant on cropland, or do they not really need it? Because in the future, irrigation is going to look very different, and cropland's going to change.
Right.
And so we did that. It was a 4-year study, and that was ultimately what led to my dissertation, getting my PhD. And yeah, just kind of assessing both the movement as well as how the population reacts to cropland.
So what was the outcome?
Well,
if this is a
you bet,
dissertation, let me know what did you find out?
I'll give you the abbreviated version. Yeah. So from splitting it kind of in those two veins, we've got movement and then how the population's doing. On the movement side of things, there were some kind of basic things we learned. One is that they're not migrating. Simple as that. They're not migrating. They're resident deer. There are no migratory mule deer, at least in the Texas Panhandle.
Okay.
But what we did also find is that they do move a lot, not in a migratory fashion, but for example, a mature buck's home range in this region with cropland and grassland is almost 10,000 acres for a year. And so if you're a landowner, say with a 2,000 acre parcel, and you do like to do some hunting, or you've got some friends that like to hunt, and there's a buck you see on your property and like, oh, I'll let him go and get him next year when he's bigger. He may not be there. Yeah, that's only 20% of his range. And so we found some kind of basic things like that. But getting to the agriculture side of things, one of the surprising results, which might explain what landowners are seeing, is that they're not migratory, but they use cropland seasonally, much different.
Oh, okay.
And again, I think a landowner would say, well, duh. Yeah. we identified particular months. And so it's typically in this area, those winter
Sure.
months, December through March, and really honing in on that winter wheat is
I was going to say that's what they're just foraging on that wheat. and that's what they're
exactly,
doing.
but only when it's at its early growth stage, which was another thing we found. So once it is lignified or it becomes kind of stemmy and
Yes.
more of that
Yeah.
darker green color as opposed to light green, it has too much fiber in it that their digestive system can't process.
Okay.
Unlike a cow, they
Right.
don't like super high fiber food.
Okay.
And so they only want it when it's just coming up, and that's when they'll see 150 mule deer in a field.
Does it impact it? I mean, does it have a negative impact?
A great question. And that was another thing we looked at is, okay, when you see 150 deer in the field, like that seems like a bad thing from a farmer's perspective. But when we looked at the collar data, they are on average using actual crop fields less than 20% of their time. And many of them as low as 5% of their time.
Wow.
Meaning, yes, you're seeing 150 deer in the field, but it's really only that like twilight hour right before dark. And
Okay,
during
yeah.
they're not out there all night, they're not
Yeah.
out there all day. It's just an hour or two every day.
I wonder if it has like some impact. I know that the Dixon Water Foundation has done some research, mob grazing and the impacts of keeping, managing with grazing, like how it does good for the plant itself for it to be grazed some at a certain stage. And so I wonder if that would be true in
Yeah, from a
with
wildlife
just a weave.
perspective.
Yeah, because I would think that it's the same, idea. They're just there for a short while and then they move on.
Yeah. And I wasn't out there measuring the specific plants, and nor would I really
Sure.
want to.
Yeah,
but,
right. That's not your part of it. You need a soil science for that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's from just a general habitat perspective. Usually, a
Right.
little disturbance is good. So yeah, I mean that was kind of one finding, but it's still kind of left open. Why do I see them where are they the rest of the year? Right. If they're not migratory, and I see them certain times of the year because they're
Where are
coming
they
to this
going?
crop,
Because
where
there's
are
not
they?
a lot of places like, where are they going?
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of a simple answer is they're still there. They're just not standing out in an open field. They're in that brushland, kind of that neighboring native brush habitat, grassland habitat,
Right.
and they're just a little more secretive than a lot of people think they are when they see 150 of them standing in a field. And we even looked at,
Interesting.
at what distance from cropland are mule deer staying in, and at what distance is it not worth them traveling to, even in those peak months of January, February. And we found that it's right at about a mile. And so if a deer is living more than a mile away from cropland, even in those peak times, it's not going to travel that far to get to it. However, if they're living closer, within a mile of cropland, then they will use it seasonally.
Well, you just, you look around here, and especially in the winter, and you think, where else would you get food?
Right.
What else are they eating?
That's exactly right. And we had a master's student on that project at the very early, and he went out and he was clipping plants and looking at the nutritive values of it,
Okay.
and found that exact inverse relationship where in the wintertime, all of the native forage, super low in protein and energy and all of the nutrients that a deer needs, but right next door in that winter wheat field, that early growth stage, high in energy, high in protein, high in nutrients, everything that they need. And so that's exactly what's going on.
So they're just supplementing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What isn't really. So do you think if we didn't have that cropland, would they leave if they couldn't supplement in the winter?
Yeah, good question. So that's kind of the second half of the project is like how reliant on it are they?
Right.
And so we kind of did it in multiple stages. One of which is we had all these collared deer in areas with a lot of agriculture and not a lot of agriculture. And we first looked at, of the deer that used agriculture, are they different in survival and nutritional condition compared to those that never did, right? Because like I said, there were some that are too far away and they never used agriculture. And the way the project worked out, it worked out great because of those nearly 150 deer we had collared, half used cropland and half did not. And so we had this let's compare these two groups.
Right.
And we found that there really wasn't much of a difference between the two of them. Those that used agriculture or crop sources versus those that did not differ in body weight. They didn't differ in kind of their structural skeletal size. And they only varied in their kind of fat accumulation, so their body condition, for the younger bucks. And they're putting a lot of growth and trying to get bigger, so that little bit of agriculture helps.
Yeah.
And also found the survival rates between the two were no different as well.
So does that mean that like in their bodies are maybe evolved to maybe their metabolism slows down, or the needs that they have during the winter months shifts
Yes.
to what's available?
Yeah, great job. Yes.
Golly.
There is some seasonal fluctuations in their nutritional needs. Also, deer, or really all the kind of larger herbivores, are really good at balancing their nutritional intake to prepare for seasons where it's not great, right? And if you rewind to when we weren't on the landscape, they still had harsh winters to go through.
Oh, yeah.
They still had
Right.
all the native vegetation drying up in the winter. And so they pack on all those calories and those nutritional stores to ride it out through the winter. And so that's what led to kind of the second part of the study, looking at the population. So we had these deer that used cropland versus didn't, and we didn't find much of a difference. We then zoomed in on just the deer that used cropland. And we looked at, okay, so there's not much of a difference, but within those that did, what if they use the cropland more, right? So what if there's a deer that spends 30% of its time in a crop field versus a deer that spends 5% of its time?
Right.
Is there a difference there?
Right.
And that's where we started seeing some differences, where they're not necessarily reliant on using cropland, but if they do choose to use it, like foraging on winter wheat, there's an additive benefit to their overall body weight, their body condition, as well as even antler size for the bucks. We saw a little bit of a difference there. And so they're not relying on it, but it's there.
Right.
If they choose to use it, they could even boost up those nutritional stores even more. And in a year where there's extreme drought, or if irrigation changes cropland practices in the future, they are not going to have that little extra buffer anymore. Again, not relying on it, but they're just not going to have it.
It's just not going to be there.
Yeah.
Gosh, that is so interesting. Yeah, it's just, to me, I mean, I just don't even think of this area. It's hard to imagine what it'll be like, because when I think of this area, I don't even think of brushy areas. Right. We have some what we call the draws, that, and there's still some old rangy, sandy land, and stuff like that. But I do think that as we convert to grassland, are we able to consider managing that land in a way where hunting can become another piece of income?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's, especially in other regions of Texas specifically, there's a lot of landowners that balance multiple sources of income that way. And particularly, it's very seasonal in your sources of income. And hunting can provide either a little addition in a particular season or fill the gap between seasons where there's no income coming in. And, we talked about hunting seasons earlier, but there are programs that Texas Parks and Wildlife provides where if you do have a lot of deer on your property or using your cropland, you can enroll in the Managed Lands Deer Program, MLDP.
Okay.
And that allows you to have some extended hunting seasons and even some extra permits where you can have your friends and family come and hunt deer for a longer period of time, and also kind of control the numbers if you are in an area where there's too many.
That's so interesting. And I think that that's something that's important to know. Like, people don't always think of hunting as part of conservation, but it really is an important part. I mean, I have been in and seen areas of Texas where there are so many deer and they are in bad shape. Mm-hmm. They're in bad shape.
Yeah.
But I wonder, as the population continues to grow in that, central Texas hill country area where I know a lot of people have traditionally hunted there. If it will move, it'll push some of those hunting opportunities our way.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Texas is a big state, so them just migrating out of a region isn't really the case. But I mean, hunting is a really deep-rooted culture in Texas, and there's a lot of regions that are enrolled in like those kind of programs. And I mean, there's some larger properties I can think of that harvest over 100 deer a year just on their property.
Yeah.
And so a lot of folks are thinking that way for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I think it is a good thing to think about, especially here. So, shift gears away from deer and pronghorn. I still can't get over that. And tell me about birds, because I know we've had, controversy back and forth about the lesser prairie chicken. And it's my understanding it did get listed on the endangered species list. Is that correct? Because it's been off, on.
It has been a back and forth battle, and to be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I really focus on the large mammal side of things, and I'm not really
Gotcha.
rooted in the bird world, or especially the controversial bird world.
Yeah. Yeah. I've wondered about that because I haven't heard anything in a long time, and I think a lot of concerns people have is just that government overreach of, I don't want them on my land because then they can come on anytime and they're only supposed to come for this, but they came for that, or you know what I mean? And so it's I think it's too bad that, you have those incidents where that has happened, and then that really does, keep people from wanting to participate. But an organization like yours that is non-regulatory.
Yep.
Is that you have much better opportunity, and I think people then don't necessarily have to work with a government entity. They can come and work with you guys.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful aspects of academia or my job is, I don't work for a government agency, and I can really be that middle person. And even, endangered species are pretty controversial, but back to like the mule deer research is, I was right in between the landowner and the state agency. And as a neutral party, like,
right,
we're here to collect objective data and provide it to both parties. Every year during that research, I'm providing reports to Texas Parks and Wildlife of here's what we're finding. And I also provided a yearly landowner report. Here's what we're finding, and here's how it might be beneficial to you.
Yeah.
And so even though I don't know much about the endangered bird or prairie chicken stuff, but researchers typically are that neutral party in between.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's, you were referring to that the fact what you're doing is applied. It's applied science. And I think so often that's a piece that gets missed, you know what I mean?
Big time.
And we haven't had a good avenue to like make sure people are aware of, hey, we did this research over here. Now, how can we get that out to friends and neighbors?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's one reason I love working for the institute that I do. The Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute is so focused on that, to where even my bosses, when they look at, actually just yesterday filled out my annual evaluation packet for 2025. And the way they evaluate us researchers is they value a scientific peer-reviewed manuscript just as much as me writing a magazine article that goes out to landowners.
Okay, the magazine is fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
It is.
Yeah, or even going to a public engagement event. Like last year, I presented I presented this sort of research at a brush management day, where a bunch of landowners came and talked about how can I manage all the brush on my property, and then I talked about how it might influence the larger big game species in their area. Yeah. And so again, I love working for who I do because they value both of those components just as much.
That is so important. And you had a researcher that was with us in our booth at the Amarillo Farm Show.
Yep.
That was great.
Yeah. I've got 6 graduate students that are all working on these wildlife questions in this area. And so we've got those 6 graduate students are overseeing 7 or 8 different research projects that have various questions, but all kind of revolving around how is the landscape influencing these large mammal species in this area.
That is just amazing. Yeah. And I think it's going to just become more and more important for us to know those things. And I know one time there was a beaver in over in like the lakes.
Yep.
region over here.
Yeah, the lake system through town,
Yes,
and then going
yes,
down to
yes.
the same system that goes to Buffalo Springs and Ransom Canyon. Yep.
Yes. And I don't know a lot about beaver, but I have heard someone talking about beavers. They are fascinating.
Oh yeah.
And everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, it was a big deal on Facebook. Everybody was talking about it, and then I think someone found it. I think maybe it got run over or something.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah. But it's likely that there's probably more out there.
Yeah. I mean, not a ton of water in this region,
No.
but again, if you rewind to before we settled in this area or manipulated the landscape, beavers were part of the ecosystem, just like the other critters we were talking about. There used to be a lot of bison and elk and all of those sorts of things. And that's, again, what makes this region really cool is we are right on that cusp of where some of these species are at. And you sometimes get some kind of cool sightings like that.
So if you were a landowner and you're saying, okay, I think I'm going to turn I'm going to have to just turn the water off on a third of my land. And I'm going to go back to grazing. Would you tell them, put in a windbreak or put in some kind of cover?
Yeah.
If you want to attract...
Sure.
Also, you want to and I'd like to make, even if it's just for myself, I'd like to be able to attract some kind of wildlife.
Sure. Yeah. And that's tough to answer because you have to really get down to each species is different. But one very general theme across almost any wildlife species is the more variation there is in the landscape, the better. And whatever that variation is, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but I mean, it's better than no variation.
Right.
And so, a windbreak or leaving the corner sections of that field of your center pivot to be native vegetation, right? If there's a particular field or two that isn't really profitable, enrolling in a program like CRP, it can do great things from grassland birds all the way up to mule deer.
Yeah.
And we even saw that with some of our research. And the months where mule deer are not using cropland, they're actually using CRP specific fields in greater proportion to even just the native rangeland. And
so that's interesting because like a lot of the CRP that I see, which would be, south, it is in bad shape.
Yeah.
Like it is. And I think part of it is that I think that the grass that was recommended at the time was not really, we probably need to go back and revisit what we were told to put out there.
I don't know a lot of specifics, at least of the species, but I do know that there has been a lot of movement in that realm just in the past 50 years.
Yes, yeah.
And that's there's one kind of subsection of our institute. It's called Texas Native Seeds.
I didn't know that was you guys.
Yeah, that is us. Yeah. And they develop and a lot of seed mixtures for that kind of application.
I didn't know that was y'all. Yeah, we're good friends with Bammert.
Oh yeah.
And they've done work here for like over 50 years, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, developing seed for here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Texas Native Seeds works closely with them as well in the past. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you guys have somebody up here that represents Texas Native Seeds?
Yep, but they have regional offices all over the state. So
Yeah.
there's an East Texas one, there's a Panhandle one, a Permian Basin, out in the Trans-Pecos. They're employees already all over to develop those direct connections with landowners. Yeah.
Well, we might have to have them on and
Yeah, I can
see
definitely
what they're
get you in
up to.
contact.
That'd
Yeah.
be great.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'd really love for us to follow up with this with maybe some of your researchers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Love to hear what's happening on these projects.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
this is really fun.
Yeah, we've got research projects. We've got 2 big ones in Oklahoma, one on pronghorn, one on mule deer. I've got a researcher that's Ashlyn, who you met.
Yeah.
She's GPS collaring elk in the Texas Panhandle, mule deer, whitetail. It's pretty incredible to see a bull elk hanging from under a helicopter as we're before we put a collar on it.
Oh my goodness, I bet it is.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. So are you seeing those like north of like the canyon area?
Yep. Yeah. Along the Canadian River kind of drainage.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There are elk appearing, which likely coming from New Mexico or even Colorado coming through. And they seem to be expanding in that area. And so we've got a project in partnership with Texas Parks and Wildlife that are trying to understand where they're moving from to, how that influences like mule deer and whitetail. And there's also some disease concerns in that area as well.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that too. Especially, are there diseases that these elk and deer can carry that can transfer into cattle?
Yeah, elk in other regions of the country, brucellosis can be a concern, but that's about the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's such at a low density that I don't want people to be worried about that.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
again, this is
Yeah.
like a novel, right at the beginning
Beginning
stages
stages.
of some elk coming in.
Yeah.
The bigger concern is chronic wasting disease, which is a deer family specific disease.
Yeah, it's bad. That's what I've seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of
Yes.
what our project is hinged on, is just
Okay.
understanding what's going on as well as trying to predict what might happen with that disease in that area.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll just schedule some more podcasts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming and giving us your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And Kingsville to Lubbock.
Yep.
That's quite a leap.
I've enjoyed the transition. I love
And
this
you
area.
guys are over there right by J&B Coffee.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember walking past there one day going, what is that? And then I was there a few months later and my brother's like, you need to go talk to those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what is it?
I'm glad you stopped in.
Yeah, it's been great. Well, thanks, friends, for joining us for this episode of Conservation Stories. And thank you for your support and listening, and like, review, share, all that fun stuff. And we will see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.